Twitter the other day, the night Coach Sutton passed away. Oklahoma State is deeply saddened by the passing of Coach Eddie Sutton, Hall of Fame coach with more than 800 wins. He revived our historic basketball program and will always be revered and loved by the Cowboy family. Our thoughts and prayers are with the entire Sutton family. Um, and President of Oklahoma State, Burns Hargis, we bring him in now, and first of all, appreciate you coming on with us. You got a great staff. They called me back, a couple of hours after I made the request and set
Yeah,
this
Robert,
up. And
that's how ordinary people can look extraordinary. Have good people around you.
you know what? That's the secret. I've got a book on my shelf at home. My dad got it when we lived in Columbus, Ohio. He had a chance to rub elbows with Woody Hayes, and we all know Woody had some flaws. He got a little too
As
emotional
we
on the
all do.
sidelines. But I love that book. I love the title. You win with people,
That's right.
and yeah. So
That,
let me ask you about Coach Sutton because before Burns Hargis was president at Oklahoma State University, I knew you as a business leader, an attorney. I knew you as a regent at Oklahoma State University and a huge Oklahoma State supporter and fan. So you weren't the president when Coach Sutton took over basketball, but you saw the impact. Your thoughts on Coach Sutton?
yeah, actually, I was a regent for a few of those years, about 5 years of Eddie's term. But yeah, when I came in March of '08, uh, Sean was the coach at that time, and but Eddie was always very gracious to me. He really was went out of his way, but way more than he needed to be friendly. I got a award in Oklahoma City one night, and lo and behold, Eddie Sutton showed up in a tuxedo. On a weeknight? It was like a Thursday night, and showed up with in a tuxedo and gave me a signed basketball, which I have in my bookcase today. Just a very generous thing for him to do. It was kind of almost like a Greek tragedy in many ways because he had so much success and was so beloved, and then had things befall him that shouldn't have happened to anybody. And I think the Hall of Fame was the punctuation of all that. I'm so glad that finally got fixed before he passed on, and I hope he understood what had happened. But he's one of those rare individuals. He like a Hank Iba or Adolf Rolf, or any of these legends. At the end of the day, it's not the wins and losses; it's the people they affected.
No, absolutely, and I think the two greatest coaches that I've ever been around and covered as a member of the media, Coach Sutton and Gary Ward. I mean, I waited a little bit to tweet anything, and what I ended up writing was there are very few people that impact you like this and impact the world this way, but Coach Sutton was immortal and human all at the same time, and that's kind of weaves into your Greek tragedy comment. I mean, he was immortal, but he showed us at times, the frailty that all of us have as humans.
Did you just see how the players would come back, and how that scene when Bill Self was over there whispering in Eddie's ear just said it all for me. I mean, he just adored him, and I'm sure it was mutual.
Nah, and we've had a lot of players on this week. Tell you what, Keontae Roberts tells some of the best stories, and I think he does that because Keontae tested coach. Keontae was one of those guys that you had to reel in at times, and Coach Sutton was certainly able to reel him in. Let's shift topics, and as president at Oklahoma State, and I was thinking about this the other day when I knew we'd locked you in as a guest. You have been the president at Oklahoma State and served this university during some of its richest times, and not just in achievements, plenty of those, but certainly in income. With the you've been the quarterback of one of the greatest fundraising in the history of this university. Now, you probably should have retired sooner, because now you're quarterbacking the comeback from one of the most difficult periods at this university and the world has gone through in recent times with this pandemic.
Yeah, your comment rings true because I think it was George Burns that said, "Always leave the stage while they're still applauding." So, uh, but it is the strangest of times, and nobody has ever been through. Nobody living has ever been through anything like this, and we're all just the metaphor of navigating uncharted waters that are full of shoals and boulders and the like is really been an interesting process. But again, we have a lot of good people here, and we've all been working together to try to navigate it the best we possibly can. Uh, we definitely want to protect people, and we've I think done a knock on wood good job of that in Stillwater. I think we've had 22 cases, all have recovered, no deaths. There was a tragic death out of Cushing for Payne County, but uh, we've obviously done a good job of social distancing and wearing masks and the like. And this will get even more challenging when we come back in the fall. We're still online for both sessions of our summer school, but and then of course football is going to be another navigation that we're going to have to figure out once the fall comes. Although we have finally figured out that the players can come back on June 5th. The football players can come back on June 15th for voluntary workouts. There won't be planned practice, but they can come for workouts. So that's a start, and I think Coach Holder and Chad Weiberg have a very good plan of how they're going to bring the players in slowly in small groups and go through the testing and the training, and not football training, but avoidance of COVID training. So nobody knows if we're doing it correctly, but we're just doing the best we can. And as I say, we've got a lot of great people here at OSU and in this community that are collaborating, and I think thus far doing a pretty darn good job.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the interaction with the other presidents and chancellors in the Big 12 conference, the board of directors or board of governors of the Big 12 that voted on the reentry program or reentry phased plan last Friday. But before I do that, you mentioned Stillwater, and I checked these facts this morning. It's been close to 4 weeks since the last positive test. There are no current patients in the hospital with COVID-19, and Stillwater. And I know you're going to bring in 110 eventually. 110. That's the limit, I understand, for football student athletes in these workouts in the summer. But when you look at it, and I know one of the schools just happens to be our rival within state, is pushing back an opposite direction and kind of insinuating everybody else is getting this wrong. But when you look at Stillwater, and if you test these kids coming in and quarantine them and then get them into the process of their routines, I mean, Stillwater right now is one of the safest places in the country. And I know, talking to folks in Morgantown, they've done really well, almost similarly to Stillwater. So some of these communities, to me, it's safer for the kids to be working out here than it would be anywhere else.
Yeah, I think that's right. And Norman and Cleveland County have had a lot more cases than we have, and tragically a lot of deaths. So that may be informing President Harris and Joe Castiglione to some extent. At the end of the day, whether you're talking about a 2 week difference, I can't imagine that that's going to make any meaningful difference in the long run.
Yeah, and I don't mind. The Pac-12 is kind of letting schools do it on their own. Big Ten said, "Hey, we're going to let the institutions make the decisions on when they bring athletes back," and I have no problem with people. Oklahoma doing what they're doing, but to kind of announce to the world that hey, we're on the right side. That kind of always rubs me the wrong way, Burns, when people say we're doing it right and everybody else is doing it wrong. So
Well, you'll get
that's
over it.
yeah,
The, the the thing is that some of our conference, even though we have West Virginia way out there, but we're pretty cohesive here. You look at the ACC. I mean, it goes from the tip of Florida to Boston. Uh, Big Ten goes from Lincoln, Nebraska to New Jersey. The Pac-12 all the way up and down the almost all the Western Seaboard, plus Arizona and Colorado and Utah. I guess that's quite a few. But they're very different environments, and so it's hard to make a rule for any one conference. And I think they've been wise to leave it to the teams with a start date. If you don't want to start that date, that's your business. But nobody can start until then, and that's kind of where we are.
gotcha. How has the cooperation been? I know we've heard from Bob Bowlesby and he's talked about it, but your fellow presidents in the conference, and I know that there have been a lot of meetings, and the typical spring meetings that are held were done virtually. Um, yeah, how do you feel about the cooperation within the conference with the higher ups?
Oh, it's great. I mean, there's in this case there's only 10 presidents. When my NCAA board service, I'm dealing with 20 some odd presidents, so it makes it a little more interesting. But probably not the word I would use, but no, we're meeting today and tomorrow, as a matter of fact, and these are the spring meetings that we're doing virtually on Zoom. But no, we have had very few divided votes in the Big 12. I mean, we'll all state our opinion, and the opinions won't all be exactly the same. But we've always been able to find the path forward, and I'm confident that will continue. We've got some big issues to figure out. I mean, for example, the Pac-12 ends up not playing outside their conference, then Oregon State's not coming here in whenever that game is, the first game of the season. So there's going to be, and I think there's also going to be concerns with playing certain schools. I think the Power Five conference teams will, I'm sure, have all the protocols, all the safety measures necessary to play the game. But a school with lesser resources may not be able to do all that. And, that's how those smaller schools survive, or on those non-conference games. So there's a lot of unknowns still, and we'll just have to deal with them when they arrive.
Well, and one of the questions I get the most often on this show is, will there be fans? Will there be a full stadium? Will there be a half stadium? We know Iowa State, their athletic director came out with their plan for now, which is 50% capacity, and basically, I think he was encouraging folks to get their season tickets because that would pretty much fill their stadium halfway. Uh, I know talking to Chad, talking to Coach Holder, talking to Kevin Clintworth, um, and Larry Reese. There's no, they've discussed possibilities, and I'm sure you've been privy to their discussions. But right now, you can plan on a bunch of different things, but we really don't know where we'll be. But when you think about this, at what point does Oklahoma State need to come out with, okay, here's what we're going to do? Um, at what point do you make that decision, knowing that is it a month before the first game? Is it 2 weeks? I mean, what are you thinking in
Yeah.
that regard?
Well, I think we know so much more today than we knew a month ago, and I would think, though, by the end of July, you're going to pretty well need to have things in place of what your plans are. The problem is we could probably, I think we have 30,000 season tickets, something like that. If those people came and they were able to sit, with people that lived together, could sit right next to each other, and then you could spread it out. There might be a way to do that. I think the idea of coming into and out of the stadium will be a social distancing impossibility. So maybe everybody has to wear a mask. I, we know that wearing masks doesn't necessarily protect the mask wearer; it's protecting other people. And so,
Exactly.
just
That's why I wear it. Not to protect me. I wear it as a courtesy to the people around
protect
me.
me, yeah. So those are a challenge. And then, do we ban tailgating? I mean, that'd be a popular decision. But the chances of people social distancing and wearing masks in a tailgate probably don't line up real well. So we've got a lot to decide. And but I think it would be really great, first of all, to play the season, and really great to have fans in there in some form. And we're looking at all that, and I know Chad and Mike are all over that. So, but I think the sooner the better with that decision, so our fans can plan.
Yeah, and here's another thing, and this is just an emotional comment that and you and I cherish the times when you were a regent. You'd go on that regent trip in football, and you guys would be on the bus with us, with Dave and John and myself, and I'd sit around President Hargis, and he'd fill me in on the politics, which I'm interested in, but don't always get to follow as well as I would like. And then I'd kind of fill him in on what was going on with football. We had some great conversations, but
Yeah.
here's the thing. I know Mike Gundy was fairly overzealous early on. I have at times been overzealous because we all have a bit of selfishness in us, and my selfishness is I want to call games. That's what I do for a living, and that's what I enjoy doing. I talked to Dave Hunziker this morning. Dave was talking about, boy, I can't get sick. I don't want to miss any games, and
Mm-hmm.
we're all concerned about that. Mike Gundy wants to coach games, and here's the thing: we're coming into a crazy period, a season that may have all kinds of twists and turns to it that we've never seen before, and it just so happens this is one of those years, Burns. This football team is really good, and it's
I
not
know.
just
I know.
Chuba, it's not just Tylen. Yeah.
it's kind of the bad luck of the draw, isn't it? I mean,
Oh, it's terrible.
yeah.
Yes.
I actually was in the training room last week or week before last, I guess, and both Chuba and Tylen were both in there. They look great, by the way, and I just shook my head. You guys have to play. It's be outrageous if this team didn't get to play this year. So I've got my
Let's.
fingers crossed.
Yeah, me too. Before we turn you loose, let's turn it back to the overall purpose of Oklahoma State University. That's the education of students and all that. Kyle Ray's a good friend. I know he's done a terrific job.
Sure has.
When you look at missing the summer with on campus education, it's all online. Going to bring students back. I don't know what the dynamics or the economics were of ending on campus education at the end of spring break. But from a financial standpoint, what can you tell us about what's been lost and where the university is as far as I know with the fundraising, I know with the way this university's been run economically, it's sound, but how much has this hurt Oklahoma State so far?
Well, I'm pretty sure the refunds of the housing and meal plans and fees that the students couldn't access the benefit of, for example, the Colvin Center, totaled about $8 million. Now, there's a lot of other expenses, though, that we've incurred over this summer, or I guess we're barely not even into summer yet, but there'll be a lot of expenses, acquisition of masks, acquisition of PPE, temperature thermometers. There'll be a lot of things like that. We're going to have to arrange our classes differently to permit social distancing. Now, in the stimulus bill, the CARES Act, we're supposed to get reimbursed for a lot of that. I think we get between 16 and 17 million dollars that can help offset a lot of these expenses. And so, if we get that, then we'll be not whole, but a lot better. Uh, the 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 costs we're trying to keep very accurate and thorough register of all the costs that we are incurring in all of our units around here, and so we're going to be okay. The state budget is down 4%. We're going to even cut a little more than that, just in case there's a revenue failure. So it will turn on what the stimulus act actually ends up covering. But if it's as we expect, I think we'll be just fine.
Well, warning: the NCAA Division One Council extended the recruiting ban on campus and off until now, July 31st. So somebody better check Mike Boynton. That's going to drive. That's all those games that the coaches go and evaluate in July. That's going to drive him nuts. And now all the recruiting is going to stay virtually. So you may be asked a few times to do some virtual recruiting for the sports over in the athletic department. But
Yeah, I've
yeah,
always enjoyed. They bring recruits by to see me from time to time with their families. I always enjoy. I tease them and I say, I always get them, guys. I don't know why you don't bring them all over here, but it's that's a gross exaggeration. But
well,
yeah,
now
the
I was going to say
recruiting.
now you'll have to bring them in virtually because they can't come on campus.
I know it. I know it. But it's not. That's not all bad. I mean, that's they're going to be able to save a lot of money in travel and just the wear and tear on the coaches. So I think some of that would work just fine. And during the season they have to go out recruiting. That's not just double duty. That's quadruple duty on these coaches. So I think the whole recruiting regime could be improved quite a bit.
Streamlined.
Streamlined. It's just we just spend so much time and money doing that. I know Coach Gundy's talked to me about how you go and you just go to a game and stand on the sideline so everybody sees you, and then you leave and go to another game and stand on the sideline. It's
No, that's literally that's what you do.
yeah, and it's kind of silly, really. So I'm
Yeah.
sure we can do a better job, and that's one of the things that's going to come out. We're not going to go back to normal, probably. We're going to go back to some kind of new normal, and the new normal might include maybe a little more rational recruiting rules.
Well, hey, I appreciate all your time here. Again, your leadership and your friendship. I do. I miss those. I miss those conversations on the bus, going to the stadium or going to an airport or whatever. But tell
Well,
Ann hello, and I hope you
I'll
guys
do
are
it. Robert,
staying
if you get
safe.
a
And
little lonely, just always call. I'm happy to talk to you. I enjoy it, and I enjoy it. Anytime I'm out in my car around the middle of the day, I always tune you in there on 105.1.
I appreciate it. And again, we'll talk to you soon. Good luck with everything you got on your plate.
Thanks. Go
All
Pokes.
right. All right, President Burns Hargis.